So, a very good afternoon to all of you here. Thank you for staying with us. I was a little bit afraid that our panel wouldn't show, but they're exactly on time, so that's super. So my name is Paul Elbers. I am from Amsterdam, and I am the current chair of the ESICM Data Science section. And today we're going to have a roundtable discussion on how data science will transform critical care. So this can be as interactive as you like. We hope to engage you a little bit. And I've been told to instruct you that you have a little red button. So can you please find your red button and just press it, and then you'll see a light. You'll see a light, and then when you speak, it will be amplified, just like mine here. So, and then when you stop speaking, you need to turn the button off, right? So, and the same is true for the panelists, yeah? So that's very clear, I guess. Hey, and this is also supposed to be a very informal session. So I'm going to first give the floor to our panelists to briefly introduce themselves, and perhaps I can also ask them what big ideas they have in terms of how data science will transform critical care when we think about 5 or 10 years ahead. So Leo, can I first give you the floor?
Sure. My name is Leo. My zodiac sign is Leo. Yes, Azra. I am a medical intensivist. I work in the adult ICU at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. Research is at MIT. I think we're kind of renowned for offering the first openly, publicly available electronic health record data sets coming from the ICU. Of course, it's not the only one anymore. There are a number of them that you can use to build machine learning models. Greg.
Thanks for everyone being here. I'm Greg Martin. I'm a pulmonary critical care physician at Emory University in Atlanta. Spent most of my life or career working in particularly sort of clinical and translational research, focusing in sepsis and ARDS, but as you might imagine, probably for all of us, as time goes by, you spend more time dealing with digital work and or interfacing with AI, machine learning, and certainly informatics. So for me, that's everything from running a predictive health institute over the years to now mentoring and helping to guide Emory's digital strategies around electronic health records in critical care.
The red button.
Why red? It makes no sense. Okay, I'm Azra Bihorac. I'm Aries. I am running experiment. At the end, I'll tell you what it is. I am a trained as nephrologist, intensivist, and neurointensivist, and I am physician scientist. I do research professionally, and mainly now in AI and data science and machine learning, but also in a clinical translation, a little bit acute kidney injury. So excited to be here and to participate in this debate. Thank you for coming.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Vitaly Herasevich. I'm professor of anesthesiology and medicine at Mayo Clinic. Obviously, my accent not from Minnesota. Yeah, I trained in Belarus, but that's my 20 winters in Minnesota now. We have a lab which do applied clinical informatics in critical care, which we use a variety of the different tools, and these days it's called AI, and apply this to practice and measure impact and on the patients and environment. And happy to be here, answer your questions.
Yeah, so let me first gauge a bit what audience we have today. So can I see some hands? Who is an intensivist here? Okay, and can I see some hands on how many of you are currently using AI in your clinical practice? So that's 0. Oh, 1, yeah. What?
That they know of. I started learning how to do it.
Oh, well, that's good, yeah. And can I see some hands who have some coding experience? Okay, so pretty tech savvy, right? So we have a great audience. So just feel free to interrupt at any point. I'll keep the debate going anyway. But if you have pressing questions, we have a very great panel here with a lot of experience. Can I kick off? Huh? Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. Makes my life easier.
For those of you that are not intensivists, can you speak up and tell us who you are? What's your background? I saw several hands not go up. Yeah.
I'm an engineer with BD or Edwards.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I'm a clinical chemist from the Netherlands.
I'm from the Netherlands.
I'm an electrical engineer from the UK.
Medical device from Philips.
Medical science from Medtronic.
In
Medical
vitro
science
diagnosis
from
for
Philips.
warfarin.
Well, it's interesting. So a lot of company representatives, right? I think this domain is an excellent example of where industry and academia and hospitals can reinforce one another if done right. But this brings me to a question I'd actually saved for later. But can I put it forward now to the panel? So should we pay these companies to use their AI models, or should they pay us to use our data? Who wants to take that?
Okay, so first, we cannot in the US sell the data if they are under HIPAA exception gained. It's actually not okay, although the Chicago was sued for that and it didn't get punished. But if you ask some of my friends' lawyers, it is not kosher, really. You can use the data in a different way. You can develop contract, but you can't just go and sell them. At least that's what Barbara says, Leah. Actually, he knows her. So, and then I think that that relationship is probably better, redefined in more symbiotically rather than exclusively, not as a transactional, but more like a united front, because I think that as much as we are confused with AI, I think companies are as much confused with AI. No one really has the time to kind of think this through, and I would argue that most people who work in medical industry are very much deep in its heart classic scientists. We believe in some kind of deductive reasoning, in a scientific rigor, and so on. Because we go through very, very precise regulatory process. To get on the market, you need to do a lot of things. So it's not like a wellness industry that you can just create an app and put it out and cure whatever you can. It's not so easy. And I think because of that, we are facing this kind of wave of poorly conceptualized applications that not always have a scientific rigor we want to see, because we think that's what's ethical, in my opinion, truly. And I think that's why we need to partner right now. This is a great time for partnership.
I wanted to dispel the thinking that our data is not being sold, because they are being sold. Health systems in the United States are selling the data. It's not like we did not agree to it. A lot of the data that we have given away when we sign up for some app or some gadget, and that already protects them from GDPR and HIPAA because they have our explicit permission. And of course, it's not informed consent, because no one reads any of those data use agreement that you sign up for, because all you want is that app. I want to have that app now. I'm going to sign this. So there's a lot of misconceptions, I think. We still talk about privacy as if we have privacy. We don't. We don't have privacy. Companies have our data. Governments have our data. And here we are trying to protect electronic health records when, in fact, this is one thing that can truly revolutionize humanity. So I wanted to ground our discussion, because our discussions nowadays are very different even from the discussions that we were having last year, especially in the political climate now. And we need to be really at pace with what's happening with the rest of the world, because our lives are at stake, the lives of your children, your grandchildren, and we need to keep that in mind. We always say that, oh, we need to talk about this and remove politics from our discussion. And to me, that's not the right way, because there's no removing this discussion with what's happening with the world. So again, going back to your question, I think that data is already being sold. What we are pushing for is transparency in data brokerage. Who is buying and selling our data, and what are they doing with our data? And maybe that will be a deterrent to the evil forces out there that just want to make money.
Yeah, the bad actor.
So I would have expected Leo to tell us that it should all just be freely available, but is that not your take on this?
So freely available to people that we know what they are doing with our data. And the reason why we are pushing for making the data as widely available to tens and thousands, if not hundreds and thousands of eyes, is we realize how complicated the data is. People think that data is an objective representation of the world and the ground truths. They are not. They are collected by observers who themselves are not objective, with instruments and devices that are themselves have a lot of measurement bias because they were optimized with a certain demographic. Those are the healthy young males in rich countries. They have never been optimized for ICU patients who happen to be 80 years old, who happen to have all these comorbidities. And because the data is very complex, it's going to be impossible to make sense of that data if we keep the current strategy of each one doing their own thing and not working together. So to me, there is no more compelling reason to open the data than we will all be harmed if we don't have this approach.
Greg?
I was just going to echo, I mean, I think I sit right in the middle between these two, literally and figuratively, and I agree with Azra. I'd echo her point that now is really a great time to be partnering and collaborating, because there is a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of opportunity, which is the reason to be working together.
So how do you envision that then? Is that kind of coalition of willing hospitals that take their data to companies and work together, and then the other hospitals can buy it, or how does that work business-wise?
Yeah, that's probably like everything in the industry should be start with question, and what problem we're going to solve, and build optimal team to do this type of the job or so. If that again data, hospital, let's say on data, but not every company has minds and engineers or business needs for a specific type of the product. If we working toward one type of the technology that probably should be coalition or whatever it's called, but a lot of companies, they drive by business needs, and but it's I would say this is case to case. There are no single solution for everything.
Okay. So, another possibility is that hospitals or groups of hospitals develop AI themselves and try to bring that out to the world. Can that be done still?
Well, it's certainly done. I mean, you can run for QI, whatever you want. And many hospitals are already doing their local algorithms. I mean, we've done this before. Any computer decision support in many ways is a rule-based AI, is also AI. And I think that those are totally legitimate solutions. As a matter of fact, a lot of things will be so easy to develop that all you need to do is like a couple smart people, I think, and access the data. I mean, we are coming close to that time, so some easy solutions. And we are seeing a lot of that as example in our hospital. I mean, I get every week like dozens of applications through the IRB to develop some new tool from the students and residents for their own practice. So I think that's totally okay, in my opinion. I think on another side, to commercialize, when you really have a very complex product that you want to scale, scaling in academia is impossible. To scale solution commercial in academia, I don't think that's possible for AI. No matter how big computer you have, no matter what you have, it's just not the right way. So that, I think that way, if you want to go that way, you really need to look at a partnership in industry to scale up on a bigger market.
Right.
Yeah, but another problem which need to be addressed is regulation. And currently, medical application of AI, it's a kind of the Wild West, not regulated in some efficient way. And let's get to the problem, who takes responsibility for that? If we read any software development agreement, anything, just nobody read Windows software agreement, but it says what they take no responsibility for anything. And with medical software, that's not acceptable. Developing in-house allowed to do this without big regulation, because this is your own practice and you can do whatever you can do. You take responsibility for it. But obviously, a lot of hospitals, they simply don't have resources or great minds to develop these technological solutions for themselves. Yeah, that's again, I just repeated it second time, but this is case by case, case by case. Yeah, somebody can do, somebody cannot.
Thanks. So I think there is a question in the audience.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to pick up on a point that Leo mentioned, which was that a lot of the guidelines are based on very selective data that, a few clinical studies done generally on healthy people, generally in rich countries. Do you think data science, like if you got the data using our magical black box of AI that suggested that our guidelines are wrong, do you think that would be easily implemented?
So I wanted to sort of push the idea that all models should be local, they should be iterative, they should be agile, they should be reflective. That means that you need to continuously monitor them. They should be reflexive. They should be recalibrated. And for that reason, I really think that the pursuit of generalizability is misguided. And again, I'm going to tell this over and over again. Stop trying to sell AI. I think you're going to be harming people by making the model be the business model. The business model should be assisting organizations on how to create their own AI, how to locally validate it, how to continuously monitor it. Do not sell them the models, because models, again, people are thinking like this is similar to a medical device. It's not. This is nothing like a medical device that needs to be constantly tweaked because of data drift and model drift. So somehow we need to completely blow up how we think of AI now, because the way we are thinking about this is going to harm us in the end.
No, I think that's a very valid point, but I think my use of the magical black box of AI was a lot narrower in that, can we use data science to develop those localized models? And can the regulatory bodies, and I'm not talking about the FDA, I'm talking about the doctors' regulatory bodies, update their guidelines? Because I know currently a lot of countries, like say India, will often use the regulatory guidance from other countries, such as the US or Europe. Even though the doctors on the ground have the experience to say, like, we know that these numbers mean nothing. We know that you're going to have a 10% drift, and as long as you're within that, you're fine.
Every technology, including software, they need to validate it and evaluate it in a rigorous way. This is why we have clinical research. If model is valid, it doesn't matter who produced this knowledge. But again, without rigorous validation or clinical trials for this matter, that it sounds rigorous or so, yeah, we cannot use that. We need to have evidence.
And I guess I might add, if I'm hearing your question, that one of the hopes for using AI would be to be able to deploy it or test it locally and identify if your implementation or your outcomes are different than you would expect based on, for instance, the guidelines that you're following that are developed in upper middle income countries. And whether I don't think we've thought a whole lot about that. That's not the standard way to think about it. Often it's more about implementation and trying to use it for quality improvement or optimizing patient care. It's not necessarily for trying to identify variations or deviations from the expected outcome. Now, that doesn't mean it may not occur, but I don't think people think about that as priority number one, for instance, right? They would find that secondarily after they realize that things maybe aren't turning as expected.
I'm going to just take your question because he's EC, he's electric engineer, and I work in a transdisciplinary, and I spent like 20 years bridging engineering and medicine, right? And we are really coming at a time that the next profession we will train will be something in between engineer and doctors. I call them, they're going to be solution architects, because they're going to have a powerful tools to develop new solutions very easily. And but that requires, often, it's not, AI might not be intuitive to many doctors, but I will tell you, medicine is not intuitive to many engineers either. Like, we are talking about bringing two different mental models together. That requires more than just shake of the hand. It requires a lot of energy investment on both sides. It requires us to create a very different workforce on both sides. Train engineers to think like a doctors like an engineer, and meet in between. And I think that will be one of the most powerful things we will see in the upcoming decade, how that will merge together, because a lot of jobs will disappear as we know of them. I mean, we can fool ourselves, maybe not this year, but they will be modified. They will not look as they look today. And for that, we need to prepare ourselves, and we need to prepare generations that are coming, I think.
Yeah, to the extent that that's possible. And I think all of us have done this for enough years that we've seen things change already, but what I think we all worry about is the pace of change, right? And what that might look like even in 5 or 10 years.
Can you guys take us along on your vision? Say, what can the audience expect in the ICU at the bedside? What kind of data science AI applications will be first to penetrate the floor? Vitaly, can I start with you, maybe?
Yeah, there are probably two types of the technology. Yeah, one would be some diagnostic helpers, and that could be any type of the small agent which would be used to help establish diagnosis much easily. Another group of the solution could be some guardrails or like in a banking industry it's called fraud detection, when silently sitting there and notify provider only if something was missed or something happened happened wrong or so. And obviously, third type of the technology which would mimic human, this is what we kind of call artificial intelligence. That could be done through the computer vision and other sensors, because a lot impression happen and not documented in electronic medical record. And this data obviously used for developing tools or so, but the record, at least in the United States, created for billing and lawyers. And that's one of the restrictions of this data. Computer vision would be one of the solutions for that.
Maybe we can say that some of technology is already here. I would say administratively, like generative AI and LLM is absolutely going to make our life better. I really believe in that. Have you heard about ambient scribes? They are not yet deployed in ICU because they are right now deployed mainly in the clinics because it's easier. But, ICU will be a little bit more challenging. I think that will be next frontier. That you're in ICU rounds are such a valuable place. We say so many things, and you kind of spend all your energy talking, and then now you have to go and write that down. No one wants to do that. No human will repeat that again. Like, they will just go make something totally mediocre.
Are you talking about family conversations then, or?
Absolutely, all of it. I think we need to have ambient scribes listening to conversations and really capturing everything as we go. So that would enormously change our work environment. And that is like such an easy hanging fruit, in my opinion. And I'll stop there. Maybe you can.
Yeah. I guess I would add two things. So first is I was struck by how few people raise their hand about using AI now. And I think you'd be surprised how many of you are using AI. It may well, if you're in Western Europe, and actually most countries, there's probably some AI working in your hospital or your EHR or something. So you may not know it, but it's probably there. I would say, at least to your question, sort of where are things going most immediately, if you think about our goals for delivering care and controlling care and ultimately getting to both feedback loops and ultimately individualizing care, then your first step is doing simple identification, right? You're identifying the problem, you're describing it, but eventually not only are you defining it, so I agree with Vitaly, like the first step is really diagnosis and or identification, and that doesn't have to be a diagnosis. It can be a condition, a syndrome, it could be something that's a simple, an organ dysfunction, an incipient event. But ultimately you're trying to then get to being more prescriptive about that, meaning what are we going to do about that, but ultimately proscriptive, meaning I can control that. I know that that's going to happen, and I know what to do in order to keep that from happening, because now I can see what's happening in the future. That may not be in the next 5 years, but certainly we're already in the first phases, right? We're way past the identifying syndromes and making diagnoses and using integrated data for lab and clinical and other, but yet those latter phases is probably where we're going to see next.
I think if we fail, it's because of failure from a lack of reimagination. What we're trying to do now is to shoehorn AI in what existing systems we have that we all know are broken. So to me, I'm most excited about AI in its potential ability to blow things up. And this is what, to me, is the legacy of AI, is to perhaps rethink what should be the design of rounds, what should be the design of diagnosis, what should be the design of treatments. But we're not gonna get there, unless we bring more people into this discussion. So I'm really, every year I get frustrated because I go to a talk about AKI and sepsis and it's full of people, standing room only. And you go to AI sessions and it's hardly attended. So we are losing the battle right now. The revolution is at the hands of OpenAI and Microsoft and Epic. And we know that their objectives are very different from what we would like to achieve. And unless we could frame this in such a way that AI is no longer optional, it's no longer a research topic. We are breathing AI now, and unless we get people interested in learning about this technology, we might as well hang the towel. We're gonna lose this battle. So to me, this is an immense opportunity to start from a clean slate. How should we be doing rounds? Should we be doing that at the start of the day? Let us not follow what happened with the electronic health records, where all it did was to digitalize the paper record, which we know captures so much garbage. And then on top of that, electronic health records added even more garbage. And now this is the building blocks of artificial intelligence. Isn't it obvious that this AI is not gonna work? Because again, you've heard garbage in, garbage out. No, we live in garbage. And unless we clean up that garbage, we're not gonna see any headway in what we're trying to achieve.
So Leo, from a practical point of view, so your hospital is Bad Deaconess Israel, right? So how do you approach that? How do you make sure in your local hospital how do you go about what is already there in your hospital, and how do you make sure that you're not in the garbage belt?
We are not. Again,
What do you mean?
Everyone is still very much constrained with traditional ways of doing things, and no one is far ahead. People think that, some of the hospitals in the U.S. are way far ahead. Like, no, we're all in the same, even before the starting position. And some of us are even moving backwards. Because again, AI is being unfolded in a system that is ruled by power structures. And unless we start chipping away at those power structures, unless we start chipping away at the capitalist narrative, again, I hate to sound philosophical, but we have to go back to the philosophical underpinnings, because we're not going to make any headway unless we address the elephant in the room. So data is not an objective representation of the world. And if we keep that in mind, and I'm not going to say that, let's discard that data. We're having the discussion, well, can we blow up Epic? It's not going to happen because it's a $1 billion industry. Health systems have already paid billions of dollars to install Epic. There is no political will to change what's in Epic. It's still primarily looking at administrative tasks. It's not about learning health systems. If it were, then we would be probably documenting different data. And I'm excited about ambient AI. To me, ambient AI is giving us an opportunity to blow things up.
Yeah.
So what communication is actually linked with better outcomes?
And maybe I'll build optimistically on what Leo just said, boldly.
Please.
Is that, just coming back to, mental model of the world, right? What does it mean? Medicine was not very good about that. We were not very good about first principles, right? In our education, we do basic science, and then we go clinical, and then a lot of time, because now I have a job, I deal both with basic science, there is like a divide. We forgot the science, that hardcore foundational science. We need to go back a little bit on the root of that, because the data that we have, as you said, a lot of it is very superficial. It's old, we are still recording oxygen concentration, heart rate, and blood pressure, that's it. I mean, that's not a lot. And then comprehensive metabolic panel, while in the basic science, they can, on one single T cell, completely find entire immunotype of your infections in the past. Right? That's what people are able to do today with technology. So I think we need to go deeper. We need to collect deeper data about our patients. We also need to expand with the ambient, meaning, as Vitaly said, we can consider ICU as an observation unit where we can observe everything with the cameras, with the voice. We know the voice is a biomarker. Your voice can diagnose Alzheimer. So all of those data can become experimental lab for us where we can deeply understand human physiology, because there is no other place that shows us better what does it mean to break as a human as an ICU. This is a phenomenal experiment, unfortunately, and we witness that every day. And as the physicians, we learn that because just we observe it. Yeah. And we see how this is profoundly different than any other disease you've seen. I mean, I'm a nephrologist. So for me, that is a phenomenal place to do that. The first principle, understand really diseases that we deal with, and then find a cure. That's what we should use AI. We should use AI for that.
And how is that going in Florida?
Great.
Yeah? Of
course. I mean, and don't underestimate the power of small action local, think globally, act locally. I mean, we were very lucky to have very, revolutionary CIO who was very dedicated to research. Right. And worked very closely with a couple good scientists. We have engineering school is next to the medical school. It's a big public college with all college, public university. And a college of engineering is there, so it's a very tight connection. We were very lucky to get Malakovsky involved. We got supercomputer Hypergator. So we recruited 100 AI faculty. We have 30 AI faculty in medical school. So we start building those blocks of interconnections. So I think you can do that. There is no formula that has to be universal for everyone. But I think goodwill and small action locally can change a lot of things. And I think that's what's left to us, because the global right now looks very bleak. if I look at the news, and I don't, I'm news sober, you don't want to, you go and live in your, make good around you, and that will make you very happy, Leo.
I want to go to the gentleman in the corner here. Please introduce yourself.
John Savransky from Atlanta. So it's really hard to get clinicians to pay attention to messages, right? You get a computer alert that comes up in your EMR and you say, no, I'm not going to follow that, or this doesn't apply to me. I'm wondering if the panelists might talk about how you're going to persuade clinicians to follow the results of your predictive models. I know Vitaly had convinced people at Mayo prior to them moving over to Epic to use their local system. But how do you convince somebody that the data that you have should change their practice?
Oh, it's very easy. It's need to be useful. Like, nobody convince you buy iPhone. There are line in the front of the store because you found it's useful. Exactly the same here. If this technology, I call this technology, would do something useful and helpful for clinicians, they will be in a line to use it.
And another thing, I think there is, in my opinion, there is a staged approach. I think for some, not necessarily prediction, but let's say some algorithms, human out of the loop might be a better solution. Absolutely. There are things that we can completely automate without humans. And I'm not going to go in details because it might be dangerous, but there are. There are things, because some of them we all hate, and we give them anyway to medical students or people who are not even in our level. So obviously we can develop safe technology that can be without human in the loop, no question about it, to be more efficient. And then, as you said, guardrails, like you go, into the security, the amount of the red tape increases with the consequences of whatever you are about to do. But on the other hand, I totally agree with you about usefulness. It's incredible how many very innovative applications for generative AI, ChatGPT, and others I'm getting from residents. From the how to create the best consultation for neurosurgeons or they want to operate It's unbelievable how to use technology to really, again, make their life easier and make it useful. And suddenly you see explosion of interest, explosion of desire to innovate. And I think, for me, that's the most inspiring thing, that this technology will drop the bar for innovation. A lot of people might become innovators, and that is so good.
And add to that just came to my memory. I mean, any technology needs to be accurate as well, because now we are talking about this 80% accuracy in most of these models. I mean, personally, how much you want to be in this 20% which incorrect, and that's what came to my memory. A long time ago, that was manual, human-operated elevators in buildings. There was person, I still remember we had in one of the hospital like that. When person closed doors, push button, and so. And in the 1940s, when this automatization came, in New York City was strike of the elevator operators because they told it's unsafe to operate elevators without human. And still did not help, but the perfect automatization, which we cannot get on the another floor in elevator. It worked perfectly, and we just eliminate this kind of human factor from that.
Hey, I'll add one other thought, which is that I think experience and intuition tells us that the best way to get things implemented is to make it desirable for people, right? And in general, in healthcare, at least in the US, that's removing a burden or making something easier, right? So if you're providing a prompt that actually is something that someone can click on and it takes away something else they would have had to do or 10 other things that they have to do. But then you can fast forward through that and realize that there's a certain amount of work that all of us in the ICU do that is background secondary work, right, that an AI system could be doing. And that's true for physicians, it's true for respiratory therapists, it's true for pharmacists, it's true for really every professional in the ICU. So the question is how, which of those things can you use tools, doesn't have to be AI, but a tool that's going to actually promote work and make work easier and hopefully safer and better as well. But if you're trying to get people to adopt things, making their work easier in the process of making outcomes better would be key. The slippery slope is then obviously, at what point are you replacing them, right? A certain portion of our work can be replaced by something. Intuitively, that means that we can do more of something else. That's good. But people will inevitably take it to the logical extension of, well, at what point am I not needed, right? And I won't go there.
No, I just texted you, Azra, about the first principle of Richard Feynman: the easiest person to fool is yourself. And to me, what we need to do, and this is the next statement, we need to stop building models. We need to design human AI systems. And we need to design human AI systems that will anticipate how humans will mess up. Because I agree with you, in some situations, it's better to remove the humans out of the loop. And we need to reflect on how we are educating medical students and nursing students and pharmacy students. One of the things that I'm very excited about is how do you design human AI systems with humility, with empathy, with curiosity, and with joy from learning. Because these are something that we have sucked out of every student. They're no longer interested in learning. It's all about how do I get to medical school, how do I get to a good residency program. So we've decoupled all the metrics that we have that were initially designed to measure learning with something else. And now we overfit to those metrics, and they're no longer interested in how do we improve society, because the goal of learning is to continuously improve lives. It's not getting a publication in Nature Medicine. But that's what we teach to our students. We can teach them about humility, but if we unleash them to a world where the currency is still how many Nature papers do you have, how many NEJM papers do you have, for computer scientists, how many NeurEPS presentations have you had, then again, we're shoehorning AI into the current way of thinking and learning, and that's not a good thing. So I'm very excited about potentially bringing in non-traditional actors. Like, why shouldn't we ask patients what we need to teach our medical students? When was the last time you asked patients? When was the last time you asked computer scientists and engineers and anthropologists and linguists what we should be teaching medical students and our clinical trainees? And again, the legacy of AI is making us critical thinkers. Like, we've never seen this much clarity in what we need to do. And we owe that to AI because AI is putting data at the front and center. There's no hiding away from data. We can't tiptoe around it. Like, it's showing us how broken the system is, the breadth and the depth of the brokenness of the systems for education, for innovation, for regulation. And we should embrace this as an opportunity that we could leave behind this earth when the earth is already destroyed by AI, because as you know, AI is accelerating climate change. But maybe we will leave behind something good. And this is to be able to think from the heart and not think from the brain. Again, it sounds so corny, and scientists try to downplay the value of love, the value of joy. They say, oh, that's not part of scientific thinking. You cannot quantify that, you cannot qualify that, therefore, it should not be included as part of scientific thinking. But to us, scientific thinking should start from emotions, and what we're really pushing for is to have scientists regularly reflect what's motivating your science. Is it your promotion? Is it your salary? Is it your ideology? Or are you being blackmailed? And that's why you're doing this science. So don't forget those motivations behind values and preferences. And I don't know exactly what we need to do. The only thing that I'm sure of is that we need to surround ourselves with people who don't think like us. And again, I'm going to repeat this. I know the people that I work with hate me when I say, if everyone is thinking alike, no one is thinking. Because if someone was thinking, that person would have pointed out, hey, we have so many blind spots in the way we see the world, and we need to bring people who don't think like us. And the way we educate now, we're teaching AI to medical students here, we're teaching AI to computer scientist students here. It is so inefficient and ineffective. We need to bring them all in one classroom. And unfortunately, that's not very easy because each school has its own politics and actors and egos. And unless we could chip away on this, again, power structures, then there's no hope for humanity.
So that's a very positive note. And but let's follow along in your idea. So let's say you get that on the road and you get your vision going. So what does that mean for a doctor? Is a doctor still in control, or should we just think very differently on our roles?
Yes, we should not think about control. To follow on Leo. I think that...
But I think for many doctors that feels like an important thing, right?
I said that we had a very great session on AI workshop, and we had a great discussion with a lot of different backgrounds. And one thing, as we emphasized there, that the role of physician might move to be more of the conductor, strategist, rather than just executing, right? Somebody who's execute the actions and control, right? But strategic leader. And I said, besides AI skills, we need to really work on leadership skills, because that's very hard role. So many times, that desire to control every single step of the process, it disable your ability to delegate equally and with the full respect for others, autonomy to others, especially to others around you. You have to be able to give up that. The good leader leads with others, not alone. And I think that's what the ICU and everything in medicine will become that way. Doctors will be strategic leaders of the big team. A team will have so many new members that, as you said, maybe they didn't know about. And I think it will be better. And in that sense, I would say, besides, creating this transdisciplinary cross-mesh of education, we need to really teach people to be strategists and innovators.
Okay, so I'm trying to see if I can follow whether this is just an abstract idea. But who would these people be that you would strategically lead, or would they all be AI agents?
It will be your team. And AI is a part of your team.
Yeah.
This is a human AI system.
Right.
In which still you want strategic leader to be a human, I hope.
Well, I don't know. It's up to you, right?
Maybe not, but also you don't undermine the possibility that in 10 years we will not be the same race. We might be augmented humans. So it's possible. But I think even today, we need to embrace that idea, that we will become more of the leaders of the team that will involve both human and AI. Because you're going to have devices with the AI on them, all these intelligent devices around us, the team, and so on.
Yeah, that's probably, as I getting older, I appreciate more and more history and use analogy more and more. I mean, look for blood pressure monitor. In the past, you was in control of that. You push, inflate cuff and so on. Now you push button and just probably as happy with result as old-fashioned way. I mean, this is no, you're not more in a control anymore of this blood pressure monitor, but still use this. I mean, this technology, again, would be exactly the same. I mean, they would be part of the life, and we will not think twice. We use them or we don't use them. It just like simplify a lot different things.
So one of the topics that we had yesterday, and I'm still very keen to write a paper of what should be the professional identity of doctors. Because in the last decade, what we've learned is that the procedures that we thought we are the best in, we may not be the best in. A lot of the procedures, at least in the United States, have been delegated to people who didn't go to medical school, and they could do it better. And now we're going to find out that in about a few years' time, AI will be able to diagnose better than us, will be able to come up with better treatment recommendations because of its ability to synthesize large amounts of data. So in that case, what would be our role if we cannot be the best in terms of thinking and in terms of doing, because there will be robots too performing a lot of surgeries. And I really would like to embrace that our role will be not only strategists, but our role will be better advocates and activists for our patients. Because we don't need innovation, we need advocacy and activism more than ever. Our role will be listening to our patients, listening to society, reading society, and then leading the charge in making sure that all the tools that we come up with are gonna serve the interests of the majority rather than the 1%.
And Leo, did I just hear you say that you want to write a paper about that?
Yes, yes. What will be the new professional identity of doctors?
Not a paper, just to write a paper, right?
Yeah, works.
All right.
Well, I guess the thing I would add to that is that there's somewhere before we get to having robots or even augmented sort of human AI tools. I mean, there's certainly an augmented reality feature, which you can imagine facilitating procedures or even making critical care feasible in more remote scenarios. But if you think about sort of where things can be adopted or adapted really quickly, there's certain things that AI is really good at. And it can consume information much more quickly than any of us can. And it can do it with a breadth and depth that we can't, particularly on a timely nature. So if you asked me like what showed up in JAMA today, I might know what was presented this morning, but I won't know everything else. But if I'm working in the ICU and AI is helping me, AI would say, hey, there's a new thing that says for your patient who has these conditions, this new study says X. Now, you might guess that that's probably most relevant to non-pharmacologic stuff, right? Because new pharmacologic treatments don't just materialize because a paper showed up. But go back and think about low tidal volume ventilation, right? Landmark paper shows up and the intervention is turning a knob. Would that have facilitated the implementation of life-saving treatment had we had that data available at the bedside right away and a prompt that reminds people to do it, but is doing it in a way that makes it easier for them, right? You're telling the respiratory therapist or the physician about the benefits of doing this. So there's a lot of things that you can see very quickly where it could impact clinical care for all of us in potentially a good way pretty easily.
Or add that AI on machine ventilator to tell, ventilator will tell you, you're not doing right. You don't even, you can add complete intelligence to every device we have.
Yeah. So then the question is sort of how much of a physician or all the other roles in the ICU are cognitive versus more physical, right? Because if I have to go to the ventilator and see the ventilator and it tells me, but a lot of what we do is still very cognitive, right? And that may not need, right? AI can do a lot of that. And it's hopefully augmenting what we do. It's the physical things that I don't see getting replaced as quickly, right? We don't have robots that are going to show up in our ICU right away. I don't think that's, I think that will happen, right? Because they can do procedures and other things. But the earlier things is all the cognitive capacity that it can lend to a practicing person in the ICU.
But don't forget that we operate in a system. Because, you know, we always think like one patient, one problem, but what is really hard in our job is that orchestrating system efficiently. So every device, you know, you have agent for every device. You probably have AI agent for every device, and then somebody to put together. And then still you need to build that orchestra. One person, run that team efficiently, so no one dies. Like, you know, so this is not an easy problem to optimize, even like engineer. Like, it is really hard. If it was easy, it would be done. So I think there is a big role for humans. It's just going to be much harder in many ways. It will require more thinking and less just kind of like automatic repetitive tasks. Automatic repetitive tasks will be given to AI. Thank God.
Thank you so much. So in the interest of time and also in the interest of drinking beers in Brussels, we need to close the debate.
Yes, thank you. Happy birthday, Paul.
Thank you. And
Sing happy birthday.
yeah, we could, but we were not. So, but I do want to thank the panelists. So can I get a round of applause for them?
Thank you for coming.
And of course, we hope to see you tomorrow. There are some interesting sessions, including a lot on AI.